Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Rowe. We're taking a look at Algebra 2. This is Part A, Lesson number 8, Linear Inequalities. We're focusing on number 4, the graphing the system of linear inequalities. So remember, you have to show your graphs. So if you don't graph, you don't get credit. So I'm going to show you how to graph and how to shade and everything like that. So let's get started. So what do we have to do here? We have this system. 3x is greater than negative 9y. And 6y minus 3x is less than or equal to 12. To graph, what we want to do is we want to treat this like they're equations and not inequalities. So we want to convert each to slope-intercept form. Recall that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So that's what we're doing. We're converting to y equals mx plus b. So over here on this first one has one step to graph or to solve. We got negative 9y on the right. So all we got to do is divide both sides by negative 9. Now, if you recall, and I'm going to talk about this as we go, when I divide by a negative value, so I'm going to put that over here, what happens here is this inequality needs to flip. Dividing by a negative flips the inequality. And you've kind of seen that hopefully once or twice. Why? I'm not going to go into the why. At this point, you just need to know you have to do it. So what we end up with is negative 1/3 x, and we're going to flip that inequality. And so that's our inequality solved for y, slope-intercept form with an inequality. I'm going to flip it around so that we have y is greater than negative 1/3 x. Remember, the alligator needs to eat the same thing. So the alligator is eating y, so we have to flip it around so he still eats y. So there's our inequality solved for slope-intercept form. We're going to do the same thing for the second one. The second one requires two steps. We got to move to 3x to the other side, and then we have to do division to cancel out the 6. So we're going to start off by adding 3x to each side. And if you're using Word to show your work, this little tool I'm using, this math script, it is a great tool. You see how easy it is to just throw stuff in. And if you send me the file, it makes life easy. So when I do that, and I'm going to cancel some things out here. Those are going to cancel. And that leaves me with 6y is less than or equal to 3x plus 12. Okay, and then the final step here, we have to divide both sides by 6. So we're going to try doing this without having to rewrite the whole thing. Sometimes it doesn't like doing it. I don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. So I'm going to divide 6y by 6. I've got 3x divided by 6 plus 12 divided by 6. And sometimes it doesn't like to read 6s for some reason, but I can change that real quick. And so again, we've divided. When we simplify, we're going to have slope-intercept form. So y is less than or equal to 1/2 x plus 2. All right, so both equations are in both inequalities. I'm using slope-intercept form, so I want to say equation, but it's an inequality. Both inequalities are in slope-intercept form. So now to graph, what I want to do is I want to find the slope and find the y-intercept. So over here, remember, slope is m. That's just the number in front of x, nothing else. And then b is the y-intercept. So in this first one, what is m? Well, m equals negative 1/3. And we're going to use what that means. So what that means, remember when we talked about slope, we talked about rise over run. So that means our rise will be -1. In other words, we'll go down 1. And our run is 3. So that means we'll go right 3. Down 1, right 3. All right. What's our y-intercept? Our y-intercept is b. Well, there's no b in this problem. So if there isn't a b, then by default, b is going to equal 0. So b is 0. Now, what about this second one over here? Well, the slope is the number in front of x. So that's 1/2 right here, 1/2. So m is 1/2. And again, we're going to use what that means. So what does that mean? That means that we're going to rise 1 and run 2. And I can throw those equal signs in there in just a second. So we're going to rise 1, run 2, up 1, right 2. And remember, we can also do both of these the exact opposite. I'll talk about that when we go do the graph. Well, what's the y-intercept here? The y-intercept in this one, we do have a plus b, so our y-intercept, or b, is 2. So that's how we're going to graph. So I'm going to graph. I'm going to graph this first line in blue. So I'm going to draw in blue. Let's see. We're going to get some dots here, so we're going to do that. So I'm going to start at b equals 0. b equals 0 is right there. Okay, draw for me, buddy. There we go. B equals 0. And then we're going to go down 1, right 3. Down 1, 1, 2, 3. And we can do this as much as possible. The more points you get, the better your line is, the easier it is to see. So I like to do it as much as possible. Okay, so now, if I want to graph this line, I also have to look at how it is shaded. So this line, since it's just greater than, this line should be a dashed line. So I'm going to insert a line. So here's my line. And I'm going to draw my line. And when I draw it, it's going to end up being solid. But what I can do is I can change it. I can format it. And I'm going to format it to be a little bit wider. And we're going to add some dashes. And so it's a dashed line. All right, so there's that one. Second one, we're going to do this one in red. All right, so we're going to start this one at +2. And then we're going to go up 1, right 2. Up 1, right 2. And I'm going kind of quickly because I know you don't necessarily like watching these videos for 15-20 minutes. So there we go. I'm gonna do just a couple more real quick, and then I'm going to insert this time, because it's less than or equal to, this one will be a solid line. So I'm going to insert a line, and I'm going to do a solid line. And again, it's going to come up, and then I'm going to format it to change it. So there it is. Color, this one's going to be red. It's going to be a side of the line. Let's thicken it up a little bit. And there's our lines. So now, we're not done yet. All we've done is we've graphed the inequalities, or the lines. We haven't made them inequalities yet. So how do we make them inequalities? To make them inequalities, we have to shade the correct sides of the lines. So now if we look at this one, this says y is greater than negative 1/3 x. Now, I have two ways I can do this. I can know that greater than means the top side of the line, the upper portions. So I know I'm going to shade this part. Or if I'm not sure, then I'm going to test a point. So let's test a point real quick. I'm just going to test my point over here and then erase it. So if I have y is greater than negative 1/3 x, and if I say I pick a point, and I'm going to pick a point in this top region. So I'm going to pick 1, 1 right here. If I insert that into the inequality and I get a true statement, then I know that's a solution. And so everything in that area is going to be a solution as well. So that's 1, 1. So 1 has to be greater than negative 1/3 times 1. Well, 1 is going to be greater than any negative. It doesn't matter. So I know this is going to be a true statement. So knowing that, that means I can shade the top portion of this line over here. And using the tools that you got, this is how I'm going to shade. I'm going to make that thick line again. So I'm going to shade this portion of the line. So this is my shading. So I'm not going to shade anything below that line. So now I'm going to do the same thing for this second line. Now, again, I can know, because I've had the experience of a few years of doing this, because it says less than, the bottom portion of this line is going to be shaded. But there again, if I'm not sure, then what I want to do is I want to test a point. I'm going to do the same thing I did over here. I'm going to test this point. And the point I want to test this time, because it's below the line, and it's a point that's easily used, is 0, 0. So if I substitute 0, 0 and get a true statement, then that's going to be the side of the line I need to shade. So is 0 less than or equal to 1/2 of 0 plus 2? Well, 0 is less than or equal to 2. So that is a true statement. So this again is a true statement. So I'm going to shade the bottom portion of this line. So I'm going to shade this area down here. And actually I want to do it this way. That way things cross. And so now the solution area. And this is fine. This is, if you get this far, you're done, you're good. If you were to ask just what is the solution region, the solution region is just this part where these things overlap. So that is the actual solution area. And this is the work to do it. So I hope this helps you get this one graphed. If you're still having questions or still struggling with it, please let me know in a teacher message or set up an appointment for a help session.